They're going to look for the home congregations. It's going to force people back into the New Testament church where you've got this small group of people, 5, 6 people. My sister's starting a home group right now, a home congregation right now. And I think what's going to happen is because they're now outside of the veil, they're not under the curse now that they've been under. You're going to see power. You're going to see authority and signs, wonders, and miracles like we've never seen in the history of mankind. And it's going to be those who are in the home congregations who are not a part of the system. God, I believe, is going to crash the system. I've been saying this for over 2 years now. This is the judgment is on the systems. The churches have become a system. So God is judging it right now. So that's why I've been telling people, if you're part of this 501c3, you need to don't walk, run. Come out of it now. So, there's a lot to this. So people research this on your own, search the matter out, because this is why the church has gone nuts. I have heard big time leaders right to my face say, Mark, you don't understand. This is a Christian business. You can have cars, lands, homes, boats, whatever the case may be. This is a Christian business. 3 times. This is a Christian business. I'm thinking, can you not hear what you're saying? Are you kidding me? My gosh, brother. And the Lord told me, he says, Mark, you're thinking too small of this. He says, you need to think globally. This is how these leaders are thinking. This is why it's no longer a ministry. It's a business. It's a corporation. And it's like, again, it blows my mind. I think God is just going to blow this whole thing apart, and people need to be prepared. They need to be ready, because there's going to be a lot of stuff come out on the churches. The pedophilia, the sex trafficking, child trafficking. And I got news for people. They want to pick on the Catholics, but it's not all the Catholics. They're fixing to find out it's going to be all denominations, because they just had some missionaries down in Haiti that were doing child trafficking through there. So, and they were called the Baptists. Now, I don't know if they were Baptist or not. I have no clue. But my point to this is that there's going to be a ton of other denominations that are going to be involved in this, that God's going to expose, and because he's done with the corruption. He's cleaning it up, folks.
I'm glad you mentioned the trafficking and abuse. I want to ask you a few questions about that, because last time we had a program, we talked a great deal about that. Mark, there's 5 institutions right now that are being infested, and I shouldn't say being participle. They are infested with this demonic cabal of darkness, of abuse, rape, pedophilia, whatever you want to call it. The entertainment industry, your educational industry, the medical field, a lot of doctors are being accused of this. We've got the political system, a lot of political leaders. But one of those groups that is infested with this is also the church.
That's right.
Both Catholic and Protestant. You can't just we've talked a lot about the Catholic recently on our show, but look, there's a lot of Protestant people going down too. Look, we had Bill Hybels' church, biggest church in America, go down with people being accused of abusing disabled boys. And it's not just, and I'm going to go ahead and say it, it's we don't judge people for their lifestyle, but let me tell you, a lot of this reeks of the LGBT, homosexual, sodomy situation, because a lot of this is man on boy sex. A lot of this is the boys and sodomy. When you start digging deep into this pedophilia and you dig deep into these things, Mark, that's what is rooted in. It's rooted in a perversion to begin with. And look, when you have a perversion at the core and the foundation of something, the roots and the vines and the branches that grow from that, they're going to be dark and demonic. They are.
Right.
And again, it's not just, again, that's not a judgment issue. That's just reality and facts of what we're dealing with. And it's so perverted and so dark and so demonic and so putrid to even think about some of the things that people are doing. This spirit has been around for a long time, but we're coming to the end, Mark. We're getting close to the wrapping up, the final lap before Jesus comes. And again, the harvest time is ahead of us. So why wouldn't Satan do it? Why wouldn't Satan try to destroy the children? Why wouldn't he try to do this thing in this
the next generation?
Time? Yeah, absolutely. And it's time. I want you to talk about that for a little bit. I got 2 things that I want to share with you, but go ahead and talk a little bit more about the pedophilia and what the Lord's telling you. I know you talked about it last time, but I want you to say it, because we may have some new people in the audience tonight.
Sure.
But there's a lot going on with that, and I think God's it's a house of cards. It's about to come down on the church, Mark.
Right. It's you got to go back to the child sacrifice stuff to understand that the enemy's trying to kill off the next generation. This whole thing is about killing off the DNA of Jesus Christ and ushering in the DNA of Satan, the seed of Satan, basically. So this is why you're seeing the satanic worship at an all-time high. Why? Because again, the church hasn't done its job. You want to look at why America and the world's burning the way it is, because the church has not done its job worldwide. So again, you look at the child sacrifice. Well, let's go back to the child sacrifice thing. Where does that actually rooted in? Who's in control? Jezebel. Who's the strong man over America? Baal. Baal's the second in Satan's triune. He's the second in command. So you can go into all these different other gods and this, that, and the other. I get all that. But, to keep it simple, Baal is second in command. So what feeds Baal? What empowers Baal over this nation? The abortion.
Right.
But the abortion is the food source for Baal. And these people, these leaders, pro-choice leaders, they want to say, oh, it's about a woman's right to choose. It's about, women's health. It has nothing to do with any of that. You're being duped. You're being lied to. It has everything to do with you aborting that child because they know it's a sacrifice unto their god called Baal or Moloch, whatever you want to, you know what I mean? Whatever the case may be. But that is what empowers it over this nation. So when that comes down, the Roe versus Wade, I believe, and it's going to come down on a federal level, you're going to see it drop back to the states at that point. So the pedophilia, the child trafficking, the child sacrifice has everything to do with being in control, the satanic powers, all this other kind of stuff. But the churches, what they call themselves churches, I watched a video the other day, or about a month and a half ago, of these two little brother and sister, like 7 or 8 years old, over in Europe somewhere. And they were talking about how they would be raped in their church. This was going on in their church. And they kept calling somebody father, but it wasn't their dad. It was somebody else. That these two little kids, and you could tell they weren't making this up, because they would answer stuff at the exact same time. You could tell by the way the interview was going that they knew this stuff. It was just like normal to them. This is how they're raising the kids. And they would literally hold down a little infant while they would cut his head off. And the priest or father would dance around the sanctuary, with the head in his hands. It's like, this is the kind of stuff that people don't understand is going on when these places called church. You've got stuff going on behind the scenes, whether it's immoral issues, sexual issues or money issues, whatever the case may be. But the fact is, that's what's empowering Jezebel. That's what's empowering Baal. It's all about the kids right now at this point. And it's all part of their satanic rituals. So again, people are going to want to hide their head in the sand when they hear this stuff. Some people are going to want to hear it. But the fact of the matter is, you need to hear some of this stuff. They need to be red-pilled, even the church, because they need to know the strategy and tactics of how to go after the enemy.
And Mark, you said last program, and this is not just America. This is globally.
This is global. This is global.
Over the earth. And,
all over the earth.
You mentioned the home churches, and I want you to say, I want to just bring this to you. I mentioned this to you before the show, and I want to mention it to our audience. About 30 years ago, I had a friend of mine. He's gone to be with Jesus now. And a lot of people in our circle of faith where we were at in the church that we were attending together, a lot of people didn't like him because whenever he would get up and be a guest speaker for the church, his favorite passage was come out of her, the Babylonian, the call in Revelation 17, where the angel said, come out of her lest you partake of her plagues. And he literally spoke to the church and said, folks, listen, the church system, and this was back in 1988, man, this is 30 years ago.
Wow.
Even then, he was telling people the church system as we know it is so corrupt. Get out of denominations, get out of the church, get out of these systems because you're going to partake of the same plague if you don't. Yep. Of course, the pastor friend of mine who's also going to be with Jesus, he didn't let him preach a lot after that. He sort of didn't let him speak as much as he used to after that.
Well, you know why? The reason why is because he was hitting the truth.
He was hitting the truth.
But you get these people in the wallet, their true colors come out, man. That's what that is.
That's right. But Mark, when you look at the great whore of Babylon, and you look at that prophetic passage in Revelation 17, John saw her drunk with the blood of the saints.
Thank you.
Violent spirit.
Thank you.
Violent spirit. He saw her drunk so much with the violence that was coming. It was prophetic.
Right.
And look, the great whore is representing this false religious system upon the earth in these last days. And we could go into that. And then they mourn Babylon. When Babylon's destroyed, all the kings and all the great people of the earth, what do? They mourn because their system has been destroyed. I predict what's about to happen, Mark, prophetically and spiritually in this nation. That system is going to come down. There's going to be a lot of people mourning in these last days, Mark. They're going to be sad. And a lot of these church leaders are going to be shamed and revealed for the frauds that they are. And let me tell you, folks, I'll say this, and I'll just sort of echo in what Mark has sort of been saying. The names behind what we're about to hear are not names that we're not going to recognize. They're going to be names that we turn on every Sunday, and they're on big networks, they're on big channels, and their books are selling millions, and people just ooh and ah, and they're filling stadiums, and oh my God, they're the greatest thing under heaven. And not them. Yeah, it's going to be them. They're part of this whole thing. Because when you reject the gospel and you reject the preaching of the gospel and you reject the truth, Mark, the only thing left is deception and lies, man. And when that's your trafficking in, you're trafficking with the devil. You've made an agreement with Satan.
It sounds like your friend was actually a prophet, brother.
He was a good guy.
Yeah, he was a prophet. And see, this is the problem, is that when you look at where he says you're drunk off the blood of the prophets, or they're drunk off the blood of the prophets and the saints.
Exactly.
Why? Because they're trying to kill the prophet. They've lived, the church system has killed the prophet. Why? Because they don't want to hear the truth being spoken. They don't want to hear it. They become so much a part of the world, they don't want to hear it, brother. And it's the Nicolaitan system, which Jesus said he hated. Now, what was the Nicolaitan system? The Nicolaitans taught compromise with the world's system and immorality. What do you see happening right now in the churches, brother? My gosh, people don't understand. I just cannot scream this loud enough that they have got to unincorporate. They've got to come out of the 501c3. If you don't, all I can say is just you got to repent, man. You got to walk away from it, because you're saying that God cannot meet my needs. And the other thing is, people are sowing and sowing and sowing. We've been indoctrinated thinking it's all about money, 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 money. And it's like you got these little old ladies sitting back there in the congregation just sowing, believing for this miracle. That's not going to come, because they're sowing into a demonic system. I mean, people have to understand this. When you start understanding the 501c3, you're sowing to keep that entity, that corporation alive. You're feeding that entity is what you're doing. So, it takes money to keep a 100 or 500,000 square foot building open, to keep the lights on. Yes. It takes a lot of money. You're feeding that entity. It was never designed for that, folks. That's why you're going to see the home churches come back. You're going to see the veil being lifted, the eyes and the ears being opened. You know, Paul Keith David said something years ago, and I never forgot this, man. About 12 years ago, I was listening to him in a conference, and he said this generation is not going to be able to be talked into the kingdom. They're going to have to be shown through signs, wonders, and miracles. And how can you do signs, wonders, and miracles when you're part of the system that's under judgment? You can't. You know, we're supposed to have this end-time transfer of wealth that's supposed to go to the righteous. How can God take the wealth of the wicked, which is laid up for the just, like the Bible says? How can he take the wealth of the wicked and put it back into the hands of a wicked system?
He can't.
He can't.
He can't, Mark.
He can't. It's going to go into the hands of the remnant. It's going to go into those who are not part of the system, not part of the whore of Babylon, basically, like it talks about. If you want to know why the church, another reason the church is acting crazy is because they're drunk.